Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. Hello, everyone. Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest is Suzi Kory. She is a Canadian country rock artist and motivational speaker based right here in Toronto. How you doing today, Suzi?
I am doing fantastic. How are you, Brad?
I'm wonderful. How's your morning going so far?
Every day alive is great.
You woke up on the green side of the grass, so it's okay.
Well, you know, the funny thing is I recently found out a book called The 5 a.m. Club, and I have not read the book yet, but I kind of, listened to some podcasts and so on, and talks about the importance of waking up early and how a lot of people who get a lot accomplished in this life wake up at 5 a.m. So I started doing that, and like now it's 9, and by now I'm all...
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Up and ready to go.
It's called The 5 a.m. Club?
Yeah, it's by Robin Sharma, and...
Okay.
I read his other book, which is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and it's amazing. And another one of his books is The 5 a.m. Club, and I just started to hear about that. So I looked into it, being the curious person that I am, and it really intrigued me. So I'm like, I'm the type of person I'll always try something out and see if it makes a difference. It really has, and it's only been a week, so it's fantastic.
Wow. And is there a podcast for that as well?
Well, he has a podcast where he talks, it's very basic, but, to get really into it, you'd have to probably read some of the books.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Well, I will look into those then for sure. So let's jump right in here. So you are a Canadian country rock artist and have been described as country rock. How do you feel about being given that label, and what are your thoughts about being labeled as a musician?
Well, I'm great with the label because I kind of labeled myself.
Okay.
I got asked, what is it that you do? And for a long time, I had to think about it because I actually started out doing rock music initially. I only got into music about 3 years ago, even though music has been a lifelong passion. But like many people, you get sidetracked with life. And so I went off on this other path where I was, working my way up the corporate ladder. And then all of a sudden, a few years ago, I just, something came over me where I went, life's too short. You got to get done what you really want to do and find out what that passion is. And for me, music has always been that passion. But it started out, being a huge fan of hard rock music. And I've mentioned a lot of times one of my biggest inspirations for wanting to ever get into music was Guns N' Roses.
Right.
Yeah. So I started out doing hard rock music. I worked with John Angus MacDonald from the Trews here in Toronto.
Yep.
And he produced for me a couple of rock songs. And so that's how I started off. And then later on, when I was writing new material, I started working with another producer, Brent Woods, in Los Angeles, and things kind of took an interesting turn towards country. And that's where I went, I don't know, which one am I? And then I realized country rock is perfect because I'm both. I have
the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that way I can ride the wave of both of those genres of music.
There you go. What were you doing then before you became a musician, a country music artist?
So for years, I've worked in airlines. My second passion. When my parents told me I couldn't become a performer, I had to find another passion in life, and it's always been travel. So I got into working with the airlines and, worked my way up, as I was saying. And eventually I was actually a station manager for a major airline in the Middle East. And it's funny how even all those things come back to help you with anything you're trying to create. And I'm thankful for all the experience that I gained through that, because now, even as an artist, I'm able to manage myself and, not to sound cocky, but quite well, because I have those kind of organizational skills. I know how to connect with people, networking, and all of that. So that's all come into play now, even with the music career.
Oh, okay. Awesome. So you've been compared to Emmylou Harris and Linda Ronstadt in terms of vocal stylings. How does that make you feel being compared to such country music greats as these two women?
I feel honored. And I think that's what, I've always aimed for is I'm not necessarily looking for a modern sound. I mean, you can only be genuine to who you are. And when I started doing the country music, as I was telling you, there was a kind of natural progression from rock to country. Mm-hmm. I was a little bit lost at first, going, I don't understand where this is coming from, because I don't listen to a lot of country music,
Right.
It's not something that I grew up on necessarily. But then I realized in some ways I had, but it was subconscious because my mom always loved country. And
okay.
Yeah, I was playing in the house. And so, the kind of music I was listening to in country was that type of country, more classic artists.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. And it influenced me. And so to be compared to that now is just fantastic, because I think that's where my love is. And when I do listen to country now, it is more, the Dolly Partons and them.
Right. The classic stuff.
Yeah, the classic stuff. Yeah. That's really where I kind of associate more.
Well, I was telling you too, before we jumped on here this morning, that when I first heard your voice, Stevie Nicks came to mind. So have you been compared to Stevie Nicks often?
Yeah. Well, I also explained to you the story. I was on a bus. I have people laugh at me, my friends who know me, because I'm very kind of the best salesperson you'll ever see. I don't think anybody could sell me better than I sell myself. That's kind of why I'm still self-managed.
Right.
I was on a bus and I was talking to the bus driver, and I said, hey, you want to listen to a song? And he goes, yeah, sure. So I plugged in my phone to his bus system, and this is like a public bus we're talking about. And he put the song over the radio, and he went, is this a new song by Stevie Nicks? And wow. So the fact that you now mention this, and I heard it quite often, I think, your influences are bound to somehow influence you in your music and your sound, even if you're not conscious of it, because it's not like I sit down and try and write something like Stevie Nicks or try to sound like her.
Yeah.
Producer that I'm working with, Brent Woods, one thing he insisted on was finding my own sound.
Yeah.
And the more, I was being genuine to who I am, I think it kind of drew from people like Stevie Nicks, because for me, she is one of my biggest idols. I absolutely adore her. And the fact that you mentioned that this morning, I told you just made my day.
Well, just telling the truth. That's the first woman that came to mind. And I mean, I'm a huge Stevie Nicks fan as well, Fleetwood Mac, and just her voice is just so incredible. It's just amazing. So yeah, you are in very good company. That's for sure.
Thank you. And yeah, to me, it's not just the sound is fantastic. It's her look. It's a sense of class. I think it's very important as artists to kind of maintain integrity and just have that kind of, especially with what we see a lot of times, people selling themselves out, or whether it be, physically, how they dress, how they conduct themselves. She's always had that level of class. So I do really admire that. Yeah,
she's got a style all her own, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, did you grow up in a musical household?
Not at all.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think, that always intrigues me, because most of the musicians I meet, somehow, some way, there was somebody in the family, even if it's someone a little bit distant. I have no one that I know of in any of my families, whether it's from my father's side or my mother's side, who is involved in music or the arts. And I don't know where this comes from at all. But I remember as a child, I grew up in the 80s, and I absolutely loved pop music. And that was my first kind of, foray into being influenced in that way, besides the rock music I was talking about.
Right.
We had Madonna, Prince, Michael Jackson, just unbelievable people at that time, and they were larger than life, and to me that was exciting. And I wanted to have that kind of effect on people, and to be able to influence the world somehow. But again, like we were saying, sometimes you get sidetracked in life, and my parents at the time said, no, we don't want you getting into that industry. It's full of drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And so I was a good girl, listened to my parents, and went a different path in life, but realized that, no matter how much you put off something, I think it comes back to you no matter what. And at this point in my life, it came back full force. Something overcame me where it was more powerful than anything, saying, you've got to do this. And started doing this 3 years ago.
Amazing. So now you mentioned your parents were totally against you being a performer. How old were you when they told you that? Because you had said that, you told your parents you wanted to be a performer. So how old were you when you told them that and they said, no way?
So I was about 13, I think, 13 or
Okay.
14. And it was when I first discovered Guns N' Roses. I didn't tie to Guns N' Roses that they didn't like. My first concert was Guns N' Roses. And I remember seeing Axl Rose on stage. And to this day, I can still remember that feeling of excitement. He was just like, giving 100.
Got a presence. He's just got a presence.
Yeah. And I mean, at the time I didn't know it because I was kind of naive, but as you grow up, you realize part of that is drug influenced.
Yeah. Yes.
Regardless, it inspired something in me going, I want to get up there on a stage and give people everything, and just make them feel something the way I felt watching him. And there was, something raw about it. That was amazing.
Yeah. So I read that you actually got to meet Axl. He was an idol and an inspiration for you, as you just mentioned, and you got to meet him. What was that like?
Incredible.
Tell us about it.
So it's a funny story, and I always feel like a stalker telling it. But the Reader's Digest version basically goes that it was my birthday, and I remember saying to people, the only thing I want for my birthday, like I don't want any presents, I don't want a party, I want to meet Axl Rose, and people thought I was nuts. So I said, no, I'm going to show you. Look, I'm going to do this. So I full-heartedly, believed that I was going to go to LA and meet him. And so I booked a ticket, went out. I found his address on Google. I swear. And I drove to Malibu, and I was just a couple of minutes away from the house. And, in my mind, trying to muster up what I was going to say to security to kind of say, listen, it's my birthday. I came all the way from Toronto. I just want a photo with him. But as fate would have it, he would be walking right there in the street as I
was. What?
Yeah. So you want to talk about serendipity, it was, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe, because I saw the back of him and I didn't recognize him at first, but I looked down he was wearing shorts.
Yeah.
And I saw the back of this gentleman's leg, and I knew the tattoo that was on the leg. I'm like, oh my God, that's him. And I drove up next to him and tried not to scare him and explained that, I'd come all the way from Toronto to meet him and wanted a photo, and that's all. And that was my birthday. And he was so kind, very polite, and just said, drive up to my driveway. We'll take a picture up there. And we did. And I chatted with him a little bit, and, it was incredible. And it was surreal.
Wow. What did he say when you told him you came all the way from Toronto? It was your birthday.
It was cute. He chuckled and he was just like, seriously? Yeah, seriously. A grown woman has done this. Yeah. But it was a fun thing because you really think, what is he thinking at that time? Does he think I'm nuts? But I think, people pick up on certain vibes. And I think he saw, I wasn't talking to him in a frantic way or anything, looking like a fangirl. I was talking to him calmly and just said, here's the deal. I really wanted to meet you. And the picture. And I think, he was at ease, and we talked. And I remember walking away from that and going to a restaurant nearby and just trying to absorb it all in. And the first thought that came to me was, as amazing as it was to meet him, it was the reality that you could manifest something that crazy. And that just opened up a whole new world for me, and possibilities that, what you can achieve in this world. It meant so much more than just that meeting Axl. It symbolized a lot.
For sure. Absolutely. Now, you had mentioned previously that your parents said, no way, we're not having any of that in this house. And you'd said you'd come back around full force to pursue your dream. What did your parents think of that then when it came back around for you?
I mean, so unfortunately my father is no longer with us, so he doesn't,
sorry,
it's okay. But my mom is, and, again, this was just like 3 years ago. So several years have passed. I have children of my own, and they're teenagers. And so the idea of it was kind of crazy to a lot of people, but it couldn't be any more crazy than the idea that I was going to meet Axl. So now when I tell people I'm doing something, as crazy as it sounds, when it comes from me, they're like, yeah, she's going to do it.
She'll do it.
So, that's where you realize as a person, you have to kind of trust your gut and trust your instinct and just go with the feeling of what you're doing. And now my mom is just like, she thinks it's awesome. So,
yeah. She's all on board now. See, Ma, you should have listened to me when I was 13.
Well, shoulda, coulda, woulda. But
yeah.
I'm also a firm believer that it doesn't matter. You don't look back. I think everything you go through in life leads you to where you are. And as long as you're doing it now, that's all that counts.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You got there, so that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So I also read that you had a chance meeting with Billy Ray Cyrus. Can you tell us about that?
Well, the timing of that was just so perfect because, again, I always look at symbolism and what's the meaning of that, because even meeting people like that, stars and whatever, you could look at just the superficial side of it and go, it was really cool. I got to meet Billy Ray Cyrus. But I always look for what was the purpose, what was the lesson in that. And at the time, I was flying to Los Angeles to shoot my very first music video. I was so excited for a song called Secret Garden. And I was on a plane from Toronto to LA. And I remember sitting on the plane and starting to chat with the flight attendant. And, we started talking. She asked me what I was going to do there in LA. And I said, I'm going to shoot a music video. And she got all excited. And, what kind of music are you doing? And I said, country music. And then she mentions to me, well, you know who's sitting behind you? I'm like, no. She goes, Billy Ray Cyrus. I'm like, are you kidding? And the reason I talk about timing is because at the time, that was when I was kind of going through the stage of going from rock to country. And I remember having a talk with my producer saying, I don't know, about this whole country thing, because I don't want to sell something to people that's fake. It has to come from a true place and it has to be genuine. Yeah. And how can I make this country thing something genuine for me?
Right.
And I wasn't sure, at the time. So the irony is that I end up with, this huge country star sitting behind me on a plane.
No
we
kidding.
End up chatting for the next hour and a half on the plane. And at the end of it all, he says to me, you know what, you really intrigue me in the way that you're doing your own thing. And, you're an independent artist flying to LA, shooting your own music video. I'd love to hear some music. Can you send me something?
Wow.
Yeah. And, I'd heard it before because at this point I'd met a few people in the industry and you kind of don't have any expectations of anything. But he gave me his contact. I sent him the song as soon as I got off the plane. A couple of hours later, I get a message from him on my phone saying, this is killer, and you can consider me your new fan. I'm like,
wow, that must have been one of the most incredible compliments.
It was, and we continued talking for a few months down the road, and he was, gave me some great advice, great mentor, fantastic person. But it proved to me that this whole idea of going towards country, that was my sign that you're on the right path.
Yeah.
Do this. So it's interesting how the universe just helps you.
Absolutely. That's amazing. What a story.
Well, I got lots of them.
I'd love to hear some more. I love stuff like this. This is awesome. When did you write and record your first album?
So again, the country came along later on, but I started writing and recording in 2017. With here in I was about to say Los Angeles. I'm in Toronto.
Yes.
With John Angus MacDonald from the Trews. I'm not sure if you know, it's a big band in Canada.
Yeah, I know the Trews. Yep.
Yeah. And it's funny because at the time when I started working with him, so what happened was I had just started writing songs. I don't really play an instrument. I play bass keys, but I never studied music. Yeah. And so the only way I could write was to sing into my phone. So anything I wrote, the songs that I was working on, I would just sing into my phone, and I had full lyrics, everything. And then I thought, okay, who am I going to work with as a producer? And the first thing that came to mind, well, look at the artists you like and who produced them. So I made a list of, at the time I discovered Monster Truck and Glorious Sons and all these, Canadian bands, because I was trying to think locally here who I could work with. And I'd seen that John Angus MacDonald had produced the Glorious Sons. So I reached out to about 3 producers, and I ended up hearing back from the manager of John Angus MacDonald. And, he said, I'll put it towards him and see what he thinks. And he said, yeah, I'll work with her.
Wow.
And that's how we got started. But at the time, I hadn't heard anything from the Trews. I didn't know anything about the Trews. So when I started working with him, I said to him, listen, I have to admit to you, I don't know anything about your band. And he had thought that I'd contacted him because of the Trews. And I said, no, I have to be honest with you. I contacted you because I knew you worked with Glorious Sons. Well, after I met him, I started listening to the Trues, and now they are one of my favorite bands.
They're great. They're great.
And live, they're incredible.
I've never seen them live, but I've listened to their stuff. They're great.
Yeah. So that's how I kind of got started. And that was about 3 years ago. That was doing the rock. And then a few months down the road, I decided, we did 4 songs together. After that, I decided we wanted to do new music. But at that point, I had been introduced to someone else in Los Angeles. We became really good friends. And even though when we first got to know each other, it was just a friendship. Yeah. When I wanted to write music, he kind of struck me as somebody I wanted to work with. So he not only is my producer, but we co-write the songs as well. So the newer stuff that I've done with Brent Woods, we co-write it together. Plus,
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So when you're sitting down to write, where do you pull your inspiration from?
I mean, some stuff comes just, you'll be out somewhere and I hear something and I don't know where it comes from. And it's funny because I listen to a lot of podcasts about songwriting where, they'll interview songwriters, and it interests me how people come up with songs. There's no one way to do it because sometimes, you're just going through something and, Settle of the Dust is a true story. And that comes 100% from, factual stuff. Other times I've had songs just come and I don't know where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in some ways we're kind of just a vessel for stuff that's out there in the universe. And if you're open to it and you just allow it to come through you, sometimes songs write themselves. But again, it's all over the board. I couldn't tell you there's one particular way. There's songs that I had to work on.
Yeah.
There's other things like Pretty Little Things. That's just my autobiography, discovering wonderful things in life when you're taking chances and you take risks and things you never thought were possible all of a sudden become possible.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about your process when you sit down to write? Like, I know a lot of artists, music and artists, painters and whatnot, or authors, and they have a process. Everyone has their different process for when they're sitting down to work on their craft. Do you have a process when you sit down to write songs? And do you write both lyrics and music or just lyrics?
Yeah, no, it comes together for me. Sometimes I might just hear a tune in my head, but generally, I've always had where the words come with the music because it's a feeling and I can describe the feeling through the words.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's kind of great for me because it makes it a lot easier. I think I've heard again on, a lot of shows that I've listened to where songwriters talk about the songwriting process and where they've had music and then they've got to write words to go along with that.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard because sometimes you want to do the music justice and you're trying to understand what was that music that I'm hearing and what is it talking about, so you don't even have a subject. Whereas for me, a lot of times it comes together. So the feeling brings on words to me and it comes together. And as I was mentioning, I'm not musically trained. I never, went and studied music.
Right.
So I kind of taught myself basic chords on a keyboard. I just picked up the guitar a few months ago where I started teaching myself basic chords on a guitar. Yeah, because I found that it's actually great. It gives it a different element. Sometimes the same song that I started out on the piano, when I go to a guitar and try and play it, it gives it a different feel. And I'm like, oh, this is actually better than what it sounds like on the piano.
Right.
So, it's great. And I realized that's all you really need. If you have basic chords, then I kind of play it for my producer and, I have the basic outline. And then the incredible thing with him is Brent, will take it to another level. The most recent song that I put out, Love Revolution, that started just, I was feeling this feeling about the world changing and whatever. And I sent him, the bit part that I had. And then he just turned it into this huge production. And we had these ideas of having a gospel choir. And we didn't get the whole choir, but we got a gospel singer. And again, he took it to another level.
Awesome. It must be one of the most incredible feelings when you walk out on a stage to play a show to people that are there to see you. Can you describe that or put that feeling can you even put that into words, how it feels when you walk out on stage and are ready to play a show?
Well, I think anybody will tell you that live is always more exciting than, not that the recording process isn't interesting in itself. It's been a huge learning process for me in the creation of it. You almost feel like you're birthing a child when you're creating the music. But I think the gratitude that you get back from people when you're able to, there's a vibe and an emotion that happens that will never be recreated except when it's there and it's live and it's in the room. And one of the most incredible things that I've noticed is doing, as a country artist, singer-songwriter nights. There's a lot of those, with country music artists here in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I remember doing my first one, and you feel so kind of naked, because there's nothing but you, and I'll have an acoustic guitar player, and people are sitting there and literally listening.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of vibe than when you play bars and everybody's talking and doing their own thing and you're trying to vie for attention.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an incredible feeling where you can connect with people. And that's why, not to put it down in any ways, but with the whole thing of people doing online performances, I think I've not shied away, but it doesn't interest me so much to do it. I mean, and the irony is I'm doing one this Thursday, but I haven't done many. I know artists who are doing it like daily or almost twice, 3 times a week, and consistently doing these performances online, which is fantastic because it's entertaining to people. But for me, it does nothing because I don't feel, like I'm truly connecting with anyone or the vibe. There's something missing there. And it's a very essential part of the live performance. You need to have people there.
Well, you would feed off that as an artist. You feed off the energy of the audience, right?
Absolutely. And, one of the best pieces of advice I got once was a lot of people talk about being nervous, when they get on stage and perform. And someone said to me, if you're nervous, it means you're being selfish because you're thinking about yourself. It has to be the audience.
Interesting. I've never heard that before. That's a very interesting way to look at it.
It is, and it's actually a great way to look at things because it moves the focus from about being about you to being about people. People are there to be moved, to feel something, and that's your job as an artist. And all of a sudden, it takes a lot of the pressure off of you as an artist to think about yourself and how you're sounding and how do I look, and that's irrelevant. It's how are you going to move these people that are here to watch you and make them walk away from this going, whoa, what did I just see or what did I just feel? And I think that's the biggest responsibility you have. And again, you don't get that when you're not performing to people live.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's incredible.
That is a really interesting way to look at it. I like that. You had mentioned that you're not into the whole online performance. So what made you change your mind and decide to do a performance this week?
Well, again, it's with friends, and so we're doing it for fun. I love to support people who I know who are in the industry, and Nicole Ray, who's the one putting it on, she's incredible. I mean, she's someone who walks the walk and talks the talk and, does all of it. So when I get asked by her to do something, I will do it in a heartbeat because I believe in what she's doing, and she's giving artists a platform. It's not just about the individual. It's different when you're doing an online performance because you want everybody to watch you. She does because she wants to support other artists, and being a part of that is incredible. It's like this Saturday, I've got a festival that I've been organizing, a drive-in country music festival.
Oh, wow.
It's happening this Saturday in Cavan, Ontario. And it's the first actually country music festival, drive-in country music festival that's happening. We've had a couple of shows, the Brett Kissel's group of shows, and Dean Brody did one on, I believe, Canada Day. But this is the first actual festival. And in the process of organizing all this, people are like, why are you doing this? And I realized I'm doing it for the collective. For one, you're not thinking of yourself as, it's not the Suzi Kory festival. It's about us as independent, emerging country music artists making something like that happen. That's incredible. And you start to see people want to support it because they're like, this is really cool. You guys don't have, these big names, big management companies or something, Live Nation putting this on for you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's the same thing with Nicole and what I was saying about the online performance. When it's something that's a group effort, I think there's something fantastic about doing that. And we're just chatting online and joking and laughing and playing music, and it's fun.
Very cool. Well, tell us a bit more about the festival on Saturday then for the audience. I don't think this won't be out before then, but I'd still like to hear about it.
Well, hopefully it's going to be a huge success. So
I'm sure it will.
Hear about it. But yeah, it's called the Love Revolution Drive-In Country Music Festival. And it was an idea that I got at the beginning of the summer, early June. And it was just kind of an idea rolling around in my head because I first heard about drive-in concerts. And I'm thinking, well, that's a really cool concept. Of course, at the time, I'm not thinking, it's just a thought in my head. Mm-hmm. But when something is meant to happen, again, it's looking for those symbols and the universe gives you signs that, go ahead and do it. I started to get a stronger feeling that it's something I had to do. And I couldn't understand why or how I was going to get it done. But like anything else in life, when you're intended to do something and you're feeling that you've got to do it, you don't ask how, you just get started with it. And I started talking about the idea of doing it. And one thing led to another where a friend said to me, oh, I have a friend who has a huge lot of land and he's always talked about wanting to do like some kind of concert or something on his land. So I got in touch with that person. I went out to see the land. It was perfect. One thing led to another. And in the span of 2 weeks, we've been able to, I've got radio stations doing giveaways, the big country stations. Yeah, we've got, I got Global News in Peterborough on board to promote it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and, people starting to offer up their services and volunteering, and the ball's just been rolling and everything kind of falling into place in ways that are unimaginable and unbelievable. And I'm so excited, and the artists are excited. And, we're like, this is our party for the people. We just want people to come and have a great time. And that's the main focus of it.
I think something like that is needed right now, especially with all that's gone on over the past 4 months, and just need to have something to distract and just let go of all the other shit and just enjoy and be in the moment and celebrate now kind of thing.
Well, a couple of days ago, something very interesting happened. So it was about a week ago. I live in a condo, and where I live, there's like 3 buildings. We're all part of the same complex, I guess. Yeah. And there's a courtyard in the middle of all that. And I was standing in the courtyard waiting for someone. And then I looked up at the 3 buildings, and I don't know where the idea came. And I went, oh my God, this is like the perfect place to do a performance, because all the people can see us if they're standing on their balconies, if for social distancing, whatever. So I went to the administration of the condos, and I said, listen, what do you think about the idea of doing a show here? Yeah. And they went, oh my God, we love that. But let's put it for the committee.
Love it.
And see what they come back with. And literally within 2 days, they're like, they love the idea. Let's do it. So I contacted some friends, and they came, and 3 days ago, we did this show in the courtyard. And, at the time I'm thinking, I don't know if anybody's going to show up, but they sent an email to all the residents. Well, let me tell you, there was at least 100, 150 people in the courtyard, distant, sitting in groups, whatever, separated. And then people on their balconies in all 3 buildings, like dancing and singing. And
awesome.
We did country covers, so that people would be familiar with the songs.
Yeah.
And I can't believe when we were done, people were coming up and clapping and just saying, thank you for doing this. It meant the world for us. And like, that's crazy,
That's from that moment standing there and really, hey, why don't we do that? And then just pulling it off. It's like you said, sometimes when you get an idea in your head to do something, you just have to say, fuck it, and jump in and do it. And that's it. Whether you know what you're doing or not, you figure it out as you go.
Well, absolutely. And again, coming back to the Country Music Festival, I've never put on a festival in my life.
That's incredible.
I had no idea what I was doing. But as soon as I got started, I think that's where, remember I told you the story about the 5 a.m. club and so on.
Yeah.
Up early. I do a lot of reflecting and writing and journaling and things. When you get your mind going, the answers come to you, and you just have to listen to your gut and what it's telling you to do next. And if you follow that, you can't go wrong. It will never lead you the wrong way. It's when you start listening to other things or having ulterior motives about why you're doing something. My pure motive for doing it is for the enjoyment of people and people having a good time and people feeling good. And, I know a lot, I'm not the only one who's thinking that way. I know a lot of people who are doing that. And that's how we can spread positivity.
Absolutely. I love it.
Starts with you. And like you were saying, just jump on it. I think people sit too much on an idea, and the more you sit on it, the more you'll convince yourself why you can't do it.
Yes, exactly. That's 100% true. It was the same thing with me for the podcast. It's like I sat around, I thought, I want to do this. And I talked to myself, said, I want to do this for so long. And then I just figured, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to do it. I don't have a clue how, but I'll figure it out as I go. And here we are today. And I've interviewed 70 plus women, and it's just, you just got to do it sometimes. Like you said, your gut just tells you, and you just don't ignore it. Just do it.
Absolutely. And, when logic and too much of it comes into play, that's when you'll convince yourself why you can't do it.
Yes. Well, outside noise. And let's be honest. I think a big problem for a lot of people is themselves. We get in our own way all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I always say, get out of your own way. You're the only one that's going to get in your way, really. Because, even if people tell you you're not going to do this, or you can't do that, or no, this is not possible, it's up to you to decide whether it is or isn't. So either you listen or you don't listen, but the person's actually not the one standing in your way. You're the only one who can stand in your way. Because if you choose not to listen to it, then you will still continue on and, do what you're doing.
For sure. Who are some of your musical influences aside from Guns N' Roses?
Well, I think we touched on it as well with Stevie Nicks and Mac in general. I'm all over the board. I think anything that kind of piques my interest, people like even Prince and Michael Jackson growing up. I admire people who pushed the envelope and did something different and followed who they are. And so, I could name a million people. And I think the most important thing is just to focus on who you are as an artist when you're sitting to do your own stuff. But of course, all of those influences come into play. But, I listen to everything. I listen to country. I listen to hip hop. I listen to rock music. I listen to classical, and I think everything comes into place somehow, some way. I love musicals. I used to go watch a lot of musicals, and I remember wanting to be in a musical. So who knows, but I think you draw from all of that. But in terms of, certain people, I think, someone like Stevie Nicks for sure is something to me that I really admire, especially as a female artist.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I also read you're a motivational speaker. Like, what? How did that all come about? And what excites and inspires you about being a motivational speaker? Where the hell did that come from?
Well, I think I told you I fell accidentally into that, as I have into many things in my life. I almost feel like Forrest Gump, because at one point in my life, I even hosted my own radio show, and on a top 40 channel in the Middle East. It was an English channel. Again, just fell into that by accident. I think when you feel something, again, it's that whole instinct. I went to go see someone else who was speaking at this thing called Mo Mondays, where it's people who get up there, and it's normal people. They're not trained motivational speakers, but what they do is they tell the story of their life. So it's not preachy, it's not telling you need to be doing this and you should do that. No, it's just getting up there and telling your own story. And when I was watching this person who was speaking, a friend of mine, it made me realize I had my own story to tell, because here I was, turning everything around, like doing a 180, in the middle of my life, and realizing how incredible it is to make those changes, and then discovering all the incredible things that are possible when you just change your mindset. And so I started doing these talks. I started out small, and then all of a sudden I started getting invited by women's groups. Can you come talk to this group? Can you talk? And one thing led to another. And so I kind of got into this motivational speaking and realized I actually love it, because it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
And, being able to show people, not by preaching to them, but by just sharing your own story and being a real person, it doesn't seem so far off, because sometimes if you watch the entertainment business, those people, whether it's big stars or big music, artists, it seems so remote and far off and distant, and like these are another group of elite people.
Yeah.
Not to say that I've reached that level of success yet, but what is success really? To be able to do what you love and you're passionate about, and to do it at some level where, it becomes your career, which I've been able to do, to me, that's success.
For sure.
People through it. So sharing the story, even at the level that I'm at, it proves to people it's possible, just go and do it. And all this idea of having the dreams in your head, that's where it starts, but you've got to take the action to follow through.
For sure. You got to be willing to put in the work. And I think that fear is the biggest thing that stops people. Well, now's not the right time. And, I've got this full-time job and I don't want to leave the security of that. So fear is a huge part of that, right? But you're living proof that you can do it. You just have to put in the work and set your mind to it.
Absolutely. And, I do share with people that I was doing a full-time job. I was still a manager at an airline and have 2 kids and doing the music full-time. It wasn't just a hobby. So I was every day off, or when I had a vacation, my vacations were spent going to LA and recording music and writing. And, you can either make up excuses or get on with it. And I think people mainly will put up walls and excuses about why they can't do something. It's like, don't tell me you don't have time, because I'm the poster child for a person who, it's managing your time. I don't watch television. I don't waste my time. I don't go out a lot. I don't go party,
Yeah.
It's what is important to you. And if it's that important, you'll find the time and you'll make the time to make sure that you get the things that you need to get done.
That's right. Prioritization. I mean, we all have the same amount of time in a day, so you can't use time as an excuse.
Right. Absolutely.
So how long have you been a motivational speaker then?
Well, that came on, I think about, a year and a half ago or so.
Okay.
When I started doing the music thing and got that going, that's when I had a story to tell. And then I had these incredible things that started to happen, like the Axl Rose story or Billy Ray Cyrus. And
yeah.
I even have another story with Steven Tyler, which is crazy.
Oh, let's hear it.
Another one of my huge idols is Steven Tyler. And again, I'm going to give you the condensed version, but basically what happened was I had been reading his autobiography. And again, it's just crazy how I feel that I manifested the meeting because I felt like I would eventually be meeting him. I didn't realize it was going to be that soon. It was just a few months down the road. I ended up meeting him and some of his people. And they said, why don't you come out to a show? And at the time, he was going to go out on the road with Aerosmith. And so I was able to go see a show in Mexico City. I just happened to choose that city. So I took my best friend and we flew out to Mexico City. And we ended up staying in the hotel with them. Not with them.
Yeah.
but I was
Same hotel.
In a hotel, with Aerosmith, but in their wing, because they had a whole wing for where they were staying. And it was cordoned off so regular people couldn't go in there. And it turned out that Steven was in the room next to me, like with his girlfriend, before people get ideas. It wasn't but, I was sitting with my friend the day of the show that we were going to go watch the show, and our door was open. And who walks in? Steven Tyler.
Wow.
And he was like, what's going on in here? And he was being funny and stuff. And we're just like, this is unreal. Steven probably just walked into my room. So we ended up going to the show to watch the show. And when we got to the stadium, again, we're in Mexico City, and I'm just thinking, I hope I have a great seat so I can see the show and study how he does what he does. It'll be really cool. It was my first time seeing them ever.
Yeah.
And we got these passes, and then we were escorted to where we were going to sit. It turned out we were actually right on the side of the stage.
Wow.
Yeah. It was unbelievable. And even at one point in the show, Steven Tyler came up to me and my friend where we were standing, and he put the mic right at my mouth. And
wow.
He was singing Living on the Edge. So I actually got to sing that one line.
Very cool.
But again, looking for the real reason why I was there, I remember reflecting on it afterwards. And that moment when I was on stage, I remember looking out into the audience and wondering, like, why am I on the stage? Why was the seat not, somewhere in the audience?
Yeah.
And I looked out and went, oh my God, the reason I am here on the stage is the universe is trying to teach me what it feels like to be in front of 20,000 people and not have it be something strange. It felt normal. It felt, this is what it feels like to be in front of 20,000 people.
I'm home kind of thing.
Yeah. And the irony is that a couple months later, I'd be in Brazil doing my third live show ever, doing my own material. There's a long story behind that one, But I ended up in Brazil on this huge stage. And, again, no nerves because I had been there before in some ways. So it's crazy how everything is for a purpose. And, if you go deeper than just the superficial part of it of going, oh, wow, this is so cool, I'm on stage with Aerosmith.
Yeah.
You realize there's a lot more meaning there, and you have to just learn what the real meaning is behind it.
That is awesome. What a story.
I told you I got lots of them.
Yeah, no kidding. I think we could dedicate a podcast episode to your stories, Suzi.
Well, and that's why I kind of got into the motivational speaking, is I wanted to share those stories, and not because I wanted to name drop and tell people about all the stars I met. I want people to understand that there's so much more to what you see on a superficial level. If you go beneath it, you'll understand that everything is teaching you something vital to where you're going in your own life. And, the fact that we were even in the hotel with them and I was backstage and so on, you see what goes on behind the scenes. And I was understanding the music industry from behind the scenes because we sat with their manager, we sat with, and I was able to chat with people, and you see what really is going on as opposed to seeing it as a fan, where you're on the outside watching, you're on the inside now and seeing truly the nerves, the issues, the great things about it, the good and the bad and everything.
I love it. So amazing. Can you share a situation that's occurred in your life that you feel provides insight as to your character?
I mean, I can't give a specific incident. I would say that every day, knowing who you are, you just conduct yourself in that way. And I think that's so important, the consistency. So I'll give you an example online with social media. People tend to, put their whole life out there.
Yes, for sure.
Whether it's the reality or not.
Yeah.
I'm very genuine in what I put out there. And although I don't necessarily, I don't put my kids and my family and so on, it's more about the music side of things.
Yeah.
But even with the music side of things, I think being genuine, and you'll probably see most of my pictures, I've got this huge smile on my face. And I've even had people comment about that saying, you know what, you make us happy. Like just looking at you.
Just seeing you smile, it's contagious.
Yes. And that's where it's not what you say, it's what you do. And, you put out a lot of messages to people and you tell them who you are through the things you do and these kind of things, with the posts, where being just genuine to who you are. And the more genuine you are to people, I think that's very endearing. And, it allows people to be genuine in who they are. So even when I meet people face to face, I have no walls up. I am who I am. This is it. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's cool. That's all good with me. But I don't change who I am based on who's in front of me. I'm just who I am. And I find that, first of all, being positive, like you said, it's contagious. And I think, just smiling at people and being kind. And that is something you have to do consistently every day. And even on days when you're not feeling so great, it's pulling yourself out of that and making sure that, you keep positive thoughts in your head. Mindset is everything. And so in terms of character, again, it's just, I'm not portraying someone or trying to be someone. It is truly and genuinely who I am. And that's an everyday thing. It's not from one particular incident. I think you prove to people, through your daily actions, how you treat people. And especially now with social media, the reason I brought that up is because on a larger scale, people can watch and see who you are. And you paint this picture, whether you like it or not, through consistency of what you put out there. Yeah. And, for myself, it's always maintaining a certain thing about honesty and being genuine in who I am. So people see this is what you're going to get.
I love it. Just be you. That's it.
Yeah.
What makes you feel inspired or like your best self?
Every day waking up and having another day.
All right. That's pretty simple and to the point.
It's as simple as that. I think people don't need to look too far or, there's nothing wrong with dreaming. And actually, I insist that people have to dream and, hope for big things. The difference is not having the expectation of those things. When you start to expect certain things, that's where you're setting yourself up for disappointment. I truly believe that whatever is meant for you is coming anyways. So just let it happen. And so by appreciating and having gratitude and just waking up in the morning and saying, thank you, I have another day to be able to receive and to give and to do and to create, that in itself is a miracle. You know, and if you appreciate that and understand it for what it's worth, you're just opening up the floodgates for incredible and amazing things to happen.
Yeah, my dad always said to me from when I was a teenager, what's meant for you won't go by you. And I totally wholeheartedly believe it.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, when people are insisting on wanting certain things, so they're so adamant about, I want this, and how come this is not, you're actually putting up blocks of what is coming, you know?
Yeah.
So yes, you might eventually get what it is that you wanted, but it's like, you know, when you're on a game show and there's like door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, and you really want that door number 1. Meanwhile, door number 3 was like this bigger, amazing, incredible thing, but you passed it up because you were insisting on wanting that.
Yes. Yeah, so for sure.
That's where you have to, you know, dream big, but keep your expectations, you know, realistic.
Yeah.
And go with the flow, and whatever works out, great. If it doesn't work out, wasn't meant for you.
That's right. That's right. What is something people seem to misunderstand about you?
I think that's hard to misunderstand anything about me because there's nothing hidden.
You're just out there. That's it.
Very much so. Yeah. I don't think I leave a lot of room for misunderstanding.
Okay.
Again, it's just because I am who I am. And I think, you know, the more as you grow older, you start to also appreciate who you are and being unfiltered, which is great. And that doesn't mean going out there and being rude and saying whatever you're thinking off at the top of your head. You want to be, I think, always practice kindness and, you know, appreciating people and understanding people. But the way you show them the biggest form of respect is being genuine. And so, you know, for me, there's nothing hidden. Whatever you see is what I am. And even on social media, I know, you know, with a lot of performance artists or whether actors, whoever it may be, that's in the entertainment industry, they're kind of sometimes guided towards putting on a certain persona of who they are, you know, even in the way they dress, the way they act, and they try to be larger than life. It's like, you know, if you feel that that's the route you want to take, great. But then you've got to do the work of upholding something that you might not necessarily, maybe it's not who you really are. And that's very tiresome. Yeah. And it's also, I think, disrespectful to your fans. And if people start to believe in you based on something you've created when it's not really who you are. Yeah. That's where, you know, a lot of people are upset sometimes to meet their heroes because their heroes don't live up to the expectations that they're having. So I think, you know, just be who you are. And then whatever people are admiring you for is something that's real. And that's all.
Great advice. I love it. If you could hold on to one memory from your life forever, which one would it be?
Wow. I think, you know, every day it's just being in the moment. And I know I'm sounding very, you know, hippie-like, but I am kind of a big hippie at heart. And I believe in just be in the moment. And I don't live in the past. I don't live in the future. I'm very much in all I have is right now. So specific memories, I mean, there's many things, like some of the things we just talked about. Yeah. That's incredible stuff I'll always have with me. And, you know, things with my kids, which is even more personal. But I think just always being in the moment. So the memory is right now, you know, and as long as you can keep with the moment, you'll appreciate what's going on right now and not miss it, because sometimes people are just either living in the past or thinking about the future and they're missing what's going on right now and not appreciating for what it's worth.
Yeah, 100%. How would you like to be remembered?
Spreading love and happiness.
Absolutely. Hippie Suzi. I love it. How would you describe yourself?
Happy hippie.
There we go. All right. What does the word empowerment mean to you?
Knowing who you are and loving who you are. Because
knowing and loving who you are.
Yeah. You know, it all starts with self-love. You cannot have anything in this world and you cannot achieve anything without loving who who you are. And even if, on the outside, it looks like you've got the material stuff. So people who've had success, that's why you see a lot of people who do have success, or what's considered, material success or professional successes, but yet they're miserable people because they don't love who they are. And they're always on shaky ground. I think when you love who you are and you understand who you are, you have a moral compass that guides you. And that's something solid, because then you keep people around you who are like-minded and positive, and it's just a more solid base. It's like building a house, and when it's ground, you're always worried that at some point it's all going to fall down. Well, I remember, actually I have another funny story. I ended up meeting Shawn Mendes, and we had a discussion. I said to him, how do you handle all the pressure of, everything that's going on? And he said to me, by realizing that even if it's all gone tomorrow, I'm good with that. And I went, wow, for someone of his age to get that.
Yeah.
Incredible. He goes, well, I grew up, with a great family, and I understand I have that. And that is the important part, not all of this. This is fantastic and it's great and I'm enjoying it for what it is. But if it was all gone tomorrow, I'd be fine.
Interesting.
That's exactly what it's about,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What is one of your favorite quotes?
If you believe you can, and if you believe you can't, you're right.
I love that one. What is your favorite thing about your career as a musician?
Being able to be creative. And, I think for a lot of people, that's why it's difficult when you're in the business world, which I'm also a part of, whether it was in the airlines or even now with music. I mean, I do all the behind the scenes stuff. That's a lot of business stuff.
Yeah.
But I have the other part of it where I have a creative outlet and I'm able to create music. And like I said to you earlier, it's like birthing a child. I mean, it's incredible to see something that started out as an idea into your head and to come into a full on, production and hear the final product of it. And then one step further, that's even more incredible, is when you share it with people and then you get the feedback on it about what it means to other people.
Yeah.
So it's something that's so personal to you, yet it is not just about you. It becomes about a lot of different things, and what it means to people. So I think that's the most amazing part about doing music or anything creative. And I think everybody has a creative side, whether you think you do or don't, whether it's writing, painting, drawing, whatever. But if you can find that and do something with the creativity, it balances you out as a human being. And I think everybody needs that outlet.
For sure. I would agree with that. And I totally agree with your sentiment that everyone has a creative side. It's just a matter of whether they tap into it and find it or not. But I think everyone has it within them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing things that I'd never written songs. And like I told you, I never went to school and got trained in music.
Yeah.
I'd always loved music. I loved singing. I was singing along to songs. But now once I got myself into it, one thing led to another. I can't believe, I was helped out with editing my music videos. I know I've dropped the storyboard of what I'm going to do with a music video. And just all these things that you do are now putting on a festival. You do not know what you're capable of until you get out there and just do it. And the reward of that afterwards is going, there's a sense of accomplishment, and,
for sure.
And not in a cocky kind of way, but what it does is helps you grow as a human being. And, it's good for your soul to understand I'm capable of a lot of things I never even knew were possible. And you would never know that until you go out and try it. And
That's right.
It's okay to fail, and in trying you learn.
Yeah. It's you talking about all that. It makes me think of how many people stop themselves from doing things by saying, I can't do that. And they haven't even tried. And it just, when you put that on a grand scale and think of all the people in the world who don't do things because of that, because of getting in their own way, because of their own roadblocks, that's a pretty sad life. If there's things you want to do and you just stop yourself because you say, I can't. And you get to the end of your life and there were all these things you wanted to do and you didn't do them because you thought you couldn't do them. That's horribly sad when you think about it.
Right. Because from all these books that I read as well, it talks about how at the end of a lot of people's lives, when they're reflecting back, it's not what you gained or what you have, like the big house and everything else, but the experiences you've had in your life and how you affected others. That's really where the value and your worth comes. It's not how much money you have in the bank, because you're not going to take it with you.
No, exactly. That stuff doesn't mean anything. The material stuff doesn't mean anything. Yeah. I mean, I've talked with a few women on interviews where we talk about travel and how the experiences you gain from that, and giving travel to children or to your kids as opposed to giving them material things is so much more valuable in their lives than a material thing, because that thing that they want, that toy, whatever the case may be, that'll end up in the garbage at some point. Whereas if you travel with them and take them and show them a different part of the world, those experiences will never go away. That will always be forever imprinted on their brains.
Exactly. And, I've mentioned to you that my second passion was travel. Yeah. And that I want to see the world. And I always imagined that I would take my children. And that's exactly what happened. Again, manifesting those things.
Yeah.
So I was able to travel to the world. I still do. I travel a lot and see firsthand. I think, there's nothing a book will teach you that going in person and feeling it and smelling it and tasting all the foods and, experiencing it fully is just unbelievable. We have a magical world out there, and, to be able to see people and experience it is just, you can't describe it.
Yeah, I've always said that no book can teach you nearly as much as the actual experience itself of traveling and being in a place and experiencing the culture and the food and all of that. It's amazing. If you could sit and have a 1-hour conversation with anyone in the world, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
I think I'd want to speak to a monk. I'm a very spiritual person. And, having read recently The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, I'd love to just understand their theories because a lot of them have found true enlightenment and happiness and understand what's really important in this life. And I've met a lot of people. I've been very fortunate in meeting people, whether it's in the music industry or, in business world, who are high level. And you realize even these people, they're not necessarily, enlightened, and they still have a lot of growth to do on themselves. Because again, reaching material success does not mean that you understand life and priorities and what's important. These people sometimes have sacrificed really important things for something materialistic, and you end up not, you're missing something. And they don't understand why, not seeing that actually there's more important stuff to do spiritually, so that when you get those other things, that's fantastic, but that's like the icing on the cake. But that's not what the core of life is. And that doesn't bring you the true happiness. As cliche as that sounds, that's why I don't idolize people so much anymore. I mean, when I was growing up, Axl Rose was like, I had posters of him all over. And, you meet him in person. It's like, this is a wonderful guy. Great. Fantastic to have met him. But, it doesn't mean he's the most spiritual person and understands the core essence of life.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the people who've reached that kind of understanding that I truly admire and would love to pick their brain a little and understand more myself.
Yeah. If you had 24 hours left on Earth, what would you do with those 24 hours?
What I do every day. Because I kind of live with that philosophy, honestly. I try to make the most of every single day. I consistently tell people I love them, all the time. I'm just showing love to everybody. And even people I pass by in the street, I don't tell them I love them, but, I smile.
Yes.
Hey, I think you have to live that way every single day. And, maybe I'd still like to go skydiving, which I haven't done.
Yeah.
But I've done bungee jumping.
Oh, I'm sure you'll do it though, as you've been alluding to and talking about. You set your mind to something and you end up doing it sometime or another. So I'm sure you'll do it.
For sure. But, in general, I think, you have to live every day with, I'm going to do as much as I possibly can, be as kind as I can. And so that at the end of the day, when you sit down and go and reflect on what was great about the day, you can go, this happened. I contacted this person who I haven't spoken to in a long time. And, you have to make that conscious effort every single day, whether it's your last day or not.
True. Very true. What makes you smile?
Everything. I have like a plastered smile, constantly 24 hours a day. And I think it comes from the heart and seeing the good in everything.
Yeah.
Again, it's like having a filter on, on the cliche of rose-colored glasses. But you can either have a filter of where you see everything in a negative way, or once you have a positive filter on your mind, you see the good in everything. And the more you see good, it's like you attract more of that.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how, I could be walking in the morning and just the way the trees are blowing and there's a beautiful wind and then the sun peeks out and seeing those things. So enjoy the little things, everything. There's so much beauty in even your children and things they might say to you. It's like, oh, that's so nice, or
yeah.
Just, I think there's a lot of beauty out there. And the more you appreciate it, the more you'll start to see it. Again, that whole idea of making things expand, right? Just by focusing on it.
Well, I mean, I think that's the one hope I personally have for coming out the other side of this whole pandemic thing. I think this has taught us to, or at least I hope it has taught most people to be able to take the time and slow down and appreciate those little things like spending time with family or going on a walk and just taking your time and enjoying what you're seeing and smelling and just slow down in life. I think this honestly was the whole point of all of this. I mean, yes, it's horrible that we've had to deal with a lot of death and then of course all the stuff that's going on in the US with racism and whatnot. But I mean, honestly, I truly believe that this first 6 months of the first half of 2020 needed to happen in order to teach us lessons as human beings and one of those lessons was to slow down and stop and enjoy things and take note of the little things in life.
Oh, absolutely. And, again, so as I was saying, the perspective on things. So when this first started happening, and I remember reading about people going, oh my God, this is horrible.
Yeah.
And, being in my home and I can't go out. Like, what's so horrible about that?
Yeah, exactly. You're right. I agree with you.
People have lived through wars and, where their life is in danger. It's like you're being asked to stay at home. You're okay. It's not the end of the world. We're not missing any food. You can go to the supermarket and get your food and you're still living. You're getting time to spend with your family. A lot of self-reflection goes on. I think that's a great thing. And I think sometimes that was harder for people to have to face themselves.
Yes.
And, but you've got to do that work. And when you do, the rewards of it is immense.
Yeah.
But, again, coming back to the whole thing about perspective, I truly believe wholeheartedly that this is the best thing that's ever happened to us. And even, you mentioned things like people dying. That was going to happen anyways. I mean, we have many diseases out there. People are dying all the time. Yeah. That's a natural part of life. It's not something because of this particular crisis that all of a sudden we have death exists. Death has always existed. It's a part of the life cycle. What's important is not focusing on that, but focus on, as if you're alive, what are you doing about it?
Yeah.
Make the most of it. And so something like what I told you, the show that I did here in the building, I mean, yes, we're confined to certain things, that we're not able to do right now, meeting in large groups, so on, but there was ways around it. Find those other ways and get going on it and do something about it. So, it's always easy to complain. It's harder to figure out a solution and actually try and be a part of the solution.
That's right. 100%. To what extent do you think we shape our own destiny and how much is up to fate?
100% we shape our own destiny. I think, there's, like I said, there's certain things that are meant for you.
Yeah.
And as long as you listen to your gut instinct and follow and trust that, you will go down the right path. But in order to do that, you're in control of that. I don't think, as I was saying, sometimes you have things in your mind that you want to do because you're so adamant about doing it. But if you look at the reason behind it, it might be because of your ego, and it might be for the wrong reasons why you're doing it. So especially being in the music industry, I see sometimes where people are so focused on it's about them and it's about, I've got to do this for my career. I want to win the award. I want to do that. But it's not about you. If you get into music and you're a performer, it's like I was telling you earlier, it's about the audience.
Yeah.
And once you start to see that, what are you providing to them that's, of value? So
Yeah.
if you're just making songs to put your songs out there and to get radio airplay, and that's what your focus is, and having high numbers and followers, and that's, I think, the wrong mentality. You've got to let all of that go, because whoever said, before Instagram, who knew about followers or
Exactly. You're right.
what is a follower anyways?
Yeah, that's right.
For me, the true value is real people and touching someone. And even if it's 5 people at a show who come up afterwards and go, oh my God, that song, when you sang this is what I thought of. That's real. That's tangible. And, it's not this superficial thing. So, yeah.
I love it. Who would you say have been 3 of the most influential people in your life?
I think without a doubt, your parents are always the most influential.
Okay.
Good or bad.
We'll call them one.
What's that?
We'll call them one. That's one.
Yeah. And, in some ways, many ways, they shaped my sense of integrity and, being a good person. That's at the core of everything. And before you go on to anything in your life, just having, morals and integrity and being a good person was number one. The other thing, I have to bring back Axl Rose, because even though, he may not be a saint, but for me, that was a game changer, and, made me start to realize it ignited something in me and made me realize that I want to follow that as a passion. Now there's a lot more to it, I'm sure, behind all that. But he was one of the people that when I saw that, that's when I had the realization and that big aha moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's hard to pinpoint 3 people in particular, because there's so many different influences. I think, although this is going to sound funny, it's discovering myself.
Yeah.
And knowing me, because, who you are is always there. But I think you lose yourself somewhere along in life.
Yeah.
And the child that you were, and because the child is always pure, the child knows exactly who they are, exactly what they want to do in life, and exactly where they're going. But then as you go through the path of life and get influenced by your family, your friends, your society, your work, your school, whatever it is, you turn into a reflection of all these people, and in the process lose who you are. Mm-hmm. So in this point in my life, rediscovering me, that's been the biggest influence, because all of a sudden now I had a strength and a power that I've never felt before, where, you go after something wholeheartedly, knowing why, and that you have a good reason to be doing it, because it's where you're supposed to be and where you're supposed to go in your life, and how you're going to make the biggest effect, a positive effect on this world.
Awesome. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Trust yourself.
Love it. Do you have any big projects aside from the concerts that you're currently working on or coming down the pike that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, it sounds funny to say that no. Yes and no. I don't have anything specific. And it's funny because even a month ago, had you told me, what do you have planned? I didn't even have the festival planned.
Right.
So I just go with the flow. Again, it's just listen to your instinct when it tells me to do something. Of course, I've been writing in this time, new material. My plan is to go to Los Angeles and record a couple of those songs. I've already sent them to my producer. He's laid down some of the tracks and so on. So I have to go there and record vocals. But that's pretty much it. I'm working on new music, and hopefully once things clear up, I'm planning a tour, and I have this idea of doing a tour of Texas. Don't ask me why, but again, it's my instinct.
Okay, well, there you go.
Saying Texas.
Look out, Texas. Suzi's coming for you.
I'm coming for you.
And lastly, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, what would that last 30 seconds sound like?
Be love and be happy. It's that you had said earlier that about fear. Life really comes down to 2 things: love or fear. Like there's no other thing that, either you're seeing things through love or you see them through fear. And fear has us act in ways that are irrational and negative, and, everything that when we see the negative side of what's going on in the world, it's because people are acting out of fear. That's it. That's all it comes down to. when you see things through love, then you have understanding of people. So even when someone is behaving in a way that's, not particularly positive,
yeah,
you can have an understanding of why they may be acting this way. I think we have to practice patience with people,
yeah,
and not quickly judge. Like even what's going on right now where people are just jumping on each other. Oh, you said this. Oh, in a tweet, 3 years ago, they said this.
yeah.
It's like, relax. We can't be doing that to each other. That's not what love is about. And it's more about understanding. And if people are learning and now, understanding what is right, well, then that happens with all of us. We all grow. I'm not the same person I was 4 years ago or even 4 months ago.
Yeah.
And so as long as we grow, we teach each other. But again, it comes down to just loving. We're all on this earth right now at this time together because we're here to support each other, and we're supposed to work together so that everybody has a chance at living a good life,
Yep, absolutely. Well, Suzi, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your story and your journey. You are truly an inspiration. This has been one of the most interesting, fun, best conversations I've had up to this point. You are a beautiful soul and an amazing human being. And you are an inspiration 100%. I can't even say enough about it. Your ideas and your way of living and your way of thinking, it's just incredible. We need more people like you in the world and more people to think the way you do.
Brad, thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity to be on your podcast because, opportunities like this give me that chance to share the ideas. And, of course, it's up to listeners to decide whether it makes sense or it doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah.
But have that opportunity to at least share from my own life experiences. Again, like I was saying to you when I do the motivational speaking, it's not talking about some foreign idea. It's just explaining what I've seen personally in my own life.
Yeah.
And it's reality, and there's proof there. That when you conduct your life in a certain way, this is the fruit of it, and it's pretty amazing and so worth it to just have a positive outlook and live a life of love.
Well, you are an inspiration. That's for damn sure.
Thank you.
Once again, my name is Brad Walsh. My guest today has been Suzi Kory. She is a Canadian country rock artist and motivational speaker based in Toronto. This has been the Empowerography Podcast. Thank you so much, Suzi. I hope you have a wonderful day today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at visuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.